Darel Carrier is one of the best shooters the ABA had ever seen. He could shoot off the dribble, in transition, off the catch, any way he can get a shot off. After a great career at Western Kentucky, he turned down the NBA, deciding to play AAU ball until the ABA was formed in 1967. With his biggest strength being his long-range shooting, the only professional league with a three-point line was a perfect place for Darel to show his skills. He and Louie Dampier became the first version of the Splash Brothers, as they were one of the best scoring backcourts in ABA history. Darel led the league in three-point percentage 3 years in a row, becoming a three-time All-Star in the process. Injuries ended his career for only 6 seasons, but Darel still stands as the most accurate three-point shooter in league history. He was one of the first players to make three-point shooting popular. He deserves his flowers for essentially changing the game. This is PZ Hoops, and welcome to another episode of ABA Tales. Darel was born October 26, 1940 in Warren County, Kentucky. He played his high school ball at Bristow, where he scored 64 points as a freshman, and he dropped over 3,000 points in total, making the All-State team twice. He decided to stay close to home, as he and his twin brother Harold committed to Western Kentucky. He and senior Bobby Rasco would consistently challenge each other to be better at practice. As he later said, he owes his career to Bobby for showing him how to deal with tough defense. The Hilltoppers scored a lot of points, earning a 6-game and a 7-game winning streak to finish the season at 14-8, but they were 11-1 in conference play, so they made the tournament. Darel averaged 14 points and 4 rebounds this season, as West Kentucky faced Dave DeBuscher and Detroit Mercy in the first round. And despite 38-19 from Dave, Darel and Bobby combined for 51 points to lead them to a win. Darel had a rough performance against Ohio State, scoring only 8 points on 4-13 shooting, as the Hilltoppers were beat by 20. They lost to Butler by 1 point in the third place game, as Darel had 22-8. The graduation of Bobby meant that Darel really had to step it up. Unfortunately, their defense was still among one of the worst in the country, so they lost their first 8 games in a row. West Kentucky finished the season at 5-16, so he didn't make the tournament. Darel improved his play, averaging 19 points and 5 rebounds. He already had a reputation as a long-range shooter, even though the three-point line didn't exist for another 20 years in college. He always looked to shoot it from further out before the defense got to him. He had the ultimate green light as a senior, but the team as a whole was pretty weak around him, so they finished 5-16 again. Darel had the third highest scoring average in school history, leading the OVC, averaging 26 points and 6 rebounds. Darel was picked in the 9th round of the 1964 draft by the St. Louis Hawks. They offered him a chance to try out, but Darel declined due to the lack of guaranteed contracts at the time. Since there was essentially no other option, he played amateur ball for the Phillips 66ers, even reuniting with his college teammate Bobby. Darel averaged 11 points and 2.5 rebounds in his first 2 years of amateur ball. In 1966, Darel was selected to represent his country in the 1967 Pan American Games in Winnipeg, teaming up with future Hall of Famers Wes Unseld and JoJo White, winning a gold medal. There was a new league in America in 1967 called the ABA, and as teams were looking for local players first, the Kentucky Colonels came calling, and Darel was now a professional hooper. Bobby would be on the team as well, along with former Kentucky standout Louie Dampier, and other great players like Goose Ligon, Randy Mahaffey, and Jim Caldwell. Darel started out his pro career hot, as he was more accurate from deep than he was from the field in the first 20 games. On February 17th against Denver, he dropped 40 points, followed by 43 points the next game against Indiana. He and Louie had already formed the most explosive backcourt in the league, with both averaging over 20 points a game. They were 4th and 9th in scoring respectively, both being named All-Stars, as Darel was 4th in three-pointers made, leading the league with a 36% shooting clip. The Colonels were set on offense, but their defense was even better, finishing 36 and 42. Darel averaged 23 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 2 assists. Kentucky faced the Muskies in the semifinals, as Darel dropped 29 in Game 1, 30 in Game 3, and 29 in Game 4, shooting 38% from the field as the Muskies won Game 5 to advance. The Colonels added Gene Moore and Ollie Darden to boost their front court in 1968. Darel continued to be one of the best scorers in the league, dropping 36 points on October 30th against Denver, shooting 4 of 5 from deep. He made all 7 of his threes in a 48-point performance a week later against Minnesota, following that up with a career-high 53 points and 7 threes in a row the next week against Miami. Darel was more than just a shooter though, as he had 2 double-doubles, even flirting with a triple-double on January 8th against Indiana, with 9 points, 8 rebounds, and a career-high 11 assists. He was an All-Star again, ranking 8th in scoring, 18th in total assists, 3rd in three-pointers, and 1st in three-point percentage again. The Colonels were pretty much the same team as last year, just a little better defensively, so they finished with a 42-36 record. Darel averaged 23 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists as the Colonels faced Indiana in the semifinals. He was unconscious in Game 1, dropping 40 points on 11 of 19 shooting, making all 5 of his threes in the win. He averaged 25 points, shooting 40% from 3 in the next 4 games, as Kentucky was up 3-2 with a chance to close it out at home. But Darel shot 3 for 12 in the Game 6 loss, followed by 5 for 18 in Game 7 as the Colonels were sent home. Kentucky really didn't change much in 1969, except adding Sam Smith as a new starting small forward. Darel started out hot again, averaging 28 points through the first 6 games. He dropped 30 points and 8 rebounds on November 17th against Washington, making all 4 of his threes. He put up a season-high 43 points on January 28th against New York. Darel was 8th in scoring, while leading the league in 3-point percentage for the 3rd year in a row, while also leading the league in free throw percentage. He made 105 threes, which is good enough for 3rd in the league. Kentucky's backcourt continued to carry them offensively, as they finished 45 and 39. Darel averaged 23 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists as the Colonels faced New York in the semifinals. He dropped 4 20-point games in this series, but his shot was a little off. It didn't matter much, as Kentucky won their first playoff series in Game 7. They faced the Pacers in the division finals, as Darel averaged 22 points, shooting 50% from 3, but the Colonels were completely outmatched, losing in 5 games. The Colonels got a lot better in 1970, adding Dan Issel, Les Hunter, Cincy Powell, and Walt Simon, but this meant that Darel's role in the offense would be a lot smaller. He still dropped 37 points in the second game of the season without any threes. On January 6th against Virginia, he put up 30 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists. While his offensive role was limited, he still contributed in other ways, grabbing 2 double-doubles and dishing at least 5 assists in 6 games. Dan took the league by storm as a rookie, averaging 30 points and 13 rebounds, and the Colonels finished 44 and 40. Darel averaged 16 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists. The Colonels faced the Floridians in the semifinals, as he dropped 31 points and 4 rebounds in Game 5, helping Kentucky win the series in 6. They got past the Squires in 6 games, as Darel kept up his production. The Colonels were now in the ABA Finals, facing the Utah Stars. Darel started out the series on fire, dropping 36 points on 13 of 22 shooting, including 6 of 7 from deep in a Game 1 win. He had at least 25 points in the next 3 games, as the series was tied after 4. He then went into a slump, shooting 22% in Games 5 and 6. Kentucky now had to travel to Utah for Game 7, and Darel came to play, dropping 31 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists, making 5 threes, but Kentucky lost by 10. The Colonels added another great big man in 1971 with Artis Gilmore, along with a great defensive player in Mike Gale. Darel was now more of a shooting specialist, as he made 47% of his threes in the first 19 games, with his best performance being on November 25th against New York, with 29 points and 3 assists on 12 of 19 shooting and 3 of 5 from deep. But Darel's back surgery in the offseason would still affect him, as he wouldn't return until March. The team really didn't miss him much, as Artis won the MVP as a rookie, and the Colonels set a league record with 68 wins. In his shortened season, Darel averaged 14 points, 2.5 rebounds, and 2 assists. After the season, Darel had announced his retirement due to his back problems, but Adolph Rupp would convince him to sign a contract with the Memphis Tams. This team was literally just a bunch of guys thrown together, as 21 different players suited up for them. Darel was still a reserve, with his best performance being a 12-point game on November 24th against Carolina. After 16 games, Darel really wasn't enjoying his time in Memphis, so he retired again. In his post-career life, Darel owned a farm and he worked as an auctioneer, also serving as a magistrate in Warren County. Darel Carrier was a trailblazer in the ABA, as he was one of the first great long-distance shooters in basketball history. He ranks as the most accurate 3-point shooter in ABA history, while having a 6-high free throw percentage and making the 5th most threes. Darel worked to be more than just a shooter though, as he was a solid rebounder and passer as well. But even Louie himself called Darel the best shooter he had ever seen, as he was selected to be on the ABA all-time team for his contributions to the game. Thank you guys so much, I really appreciate y'all. Like, I had always seen Darel Carrier when I was doing the Louie Dampier video when I first started, and then when I did the Kentucky Colonels video. I'm just thinking about how insane it is to lead the league in 3-point percentage for 3 years in a row, and he's taken a good amount of threes. That's just insane. He was one of the first really great 3-point shooters. He was a great scorer. Him and Louie Dampier formed probably one of the best backcourts in ABA history, for being honest. The ABA really was a league for shooters back then. You know, Darel was a great player, one of the best shooters in league history, one of the most underrated shooters ever, if we're being honest. Shout out to Darel, man. He and Louie Dampier were really the first Splash Brothers, if you're being honest. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate y'all for the support. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to my channel. Turn my post notifications on if you haven't already. Please be safe. Stay on the grind. I'm out. Peace.